really good interview today with Natale. He was our guest on the IntentionALL podcast today. It was our third episode of recording and really enjoyed having him on, hearing his journey in the personal side, but also the business side as well, and getting to see both of those things and behind the scenes, what was going on, what were some of the struggles, what were some of the wins, what were some of the hurdles and hills that he had to overcome. And just coming away from that conversation, I wrote down some insights that I took away from today. I have 5 of them today. These were my 5 key takeaways from the interview. The first one was he just emphasized the importance and essential role that sweat equity played in the start of his business. And there's no perfect way to get started, is really what I took away from that. No matter what you're doing, there's going to be a season that you go through where it's not fun, you don't know what you're doing, and you just have to do the hard stuff in order to save money, in order to make money, in order to keep the business afloat while you learn what you're doing. So he just really emphasized the importance for every young entrepreneur, every new entrepreneur, even entrepreneurs moving from one level to the next, of don't be afraid of that sweat equity. Get involved. Maybe that's meeting with your team more regularly. Maybe that's literally doing hands-on demo work for his venue. That's what he did, for an example. So just that concept of sweat equity, the importance, the benefit, and also the learning that you get from putting in the sweat equity on the front end. The second one that I wrote down was trade-offs. Everything has trade-offs. So often we look at different things in life and we just say, oh, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that, without considering, what am I saying no to if I say yes to this thing? So just the reality is, he went through his story and just his thought process of evaluating, what is the trade-off to this decision? What is the trade-off? There's always a trade-off. So just having that framework as I look at decisions and say, okay, I'm looking at this opportunity. If I say yes to this, what am I saying no to? If I say yes to this opportunity, what am I saying no to on the other end? And it's not always just business, but obviously as an entrepreneur, those things flow into different aspects of your life. So if I'm saying yes to this personal relationship, what personal relationship or what time bucket is that going to come out of? Because we all have 168 hours in a week. So where are those hours getting allocated? Because you don't get more of them. They don't appear out of nowhere. Everyone has 24 hours in a day. So making sure to rightly prioritize by evaluating, what am I saying yes to and what am I saying no to? The third one is a 2-part. It's the concept of worry versus care. It's always important to care, but the concept of worrying is something the Bible addresses. Don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about tomorrow. Does that mean don't care? Does that mean don't be diligent for the future? Does that mean don't plan? Absolutely not. It means take all the action that you can take, implement everything you can implement, and yes, plan and be diligent, but don't worry about it. Have it on your mind, be concerned, be thoughtful, but don't be worried. Because you can't even control the future. James talks about this in the book of James in the Bible. He says, don't say, we're going to go do this or we're going to go do that tomorrow to make this return or this return. Is that saying don't invest and don't plan and have business plans? No, it's just saying don't be prideful in your human arrogance and think that you know everything and you know the future, because you don't. So absolutely take as much action, plan, do business, but also keep in mind it will only happen if the Lord wills. So that concept of being 100% in, taking all the action you can, being planful, being diligent, working hard, because God has ordained work for man. That is a major component and purpose of man, is to work, and work can be done to the glory of God. So doing all those things, being planful, strategic, but not worrying about the future. And hand in hand with that goes surrendering to the Lord. He shared a very specific time in his business where he was trying to get to this next stage, next level, figure this thing out, and ultimately he had to surrender that to the Lord. There was circumstances that were out of his control, and he had to surrender that with an open hand to the Lord and still do everything he could, but entrust the results to the Lord. The second to last point here is we talked for a decent amount of time during the interview of masterminds and different groups and accountability, and we tried to boil and get his take on what are the most important components of a mastermind group. What were the key things that he gets value out of in a mastermind group? And he gave us 2 words to reflect on. The first one was authenticity. As an overall culture of the group, it should be authentic, but the overall culture of the group is determined by the individuals within the group and their ability to maintain authenticity. Because anybody can just say, oh, I did this thing this week or whatever, but if they are not legitimately willing to come to the group and say, guys, I said I was going to hit this target and I did not hit this target this week, here's why. Next week, I'm going to come back and I'm not going to fall short. Next week, I promise. But if they just come and they're like, yeah, I hit it, I hit my goal, but they didn't, nobody's going to know. The person has to have a level of self-accountability, and if they don't, the group's whole culture will diminish until it is completely irrelevant and it is worthless and a waste of time for everybody involved in the group. So authenticity was the first point, not only as an overarching culture of the group, but each individual must have authenticity and accountability for themselves to be a valuable member of the group, and so they are able to hold someone else to a standard. Because you think, okay, let's say for example me, I say I'm going to go to the gym 3 days a week. I don't go at all. Another guy in the group said he's going to go to the gym twice a week. He says he didn't do it. Am I going to push him? Am I going to try to encourage him to hit his target? No, because I didn't do it. So now I don't feel like I have the authority to call him out, encourage him to hit his goal, because I'm not doing it for myself. So it starts inwardly, works outwardly into the culture of the group so that everybody can benefit from the authenticity of each individual. Second part of this is be unoffendable. Be willing to let people critique you. Take that slap, take that hit, metaphorically, obviously. If they're calling you out, if they're critiquing you, if they're telling you you can be better, he just said you have to be unoffendable, especially in relationships. As Christians, we know this. We are not perfect. Someone is going to say something in a way that maybe it's just my ego that gets in the way and it offends me, or maybe they say it in a way that is unkind and rude and they are offending me. But either way, offensive stuff is going to be coming my way, and I just have to be willing to say, you know what, there's probably some truth in that. What did you mean by that? And engage them in conversation. Maybe that doesn't work out. Either my emotions or their emotions are too high, and we have to come back to the conversation. But regardless, evaluating what they're saying to you, try to step back, see it from a third-person point of view, and just say, why would they say that? Oh, the way that I probably presented myself to them in this way was pretty rude. So, you know what, I can see why they're saying that. Doesn't mean it's right, but I can see why they're saying that. That brings up a quick tangent of perspective and perception. Everybody has their own perception. I'm sitting on this side of the desk. I'm looking at the camera. I have perception from this view. You guys are looking into the camera. You're seeing me. You're seeing my hair, my shirt, my pants, this desk. You're seeing all these things, and that is your perception. And my goal and your goal and everybody's goal should be to better understand other people, is to take on their perspective. Oh, if this person was coming at it from this angle and they heard me say this, what would their perspective be on what I'm saying and how I'm communicating this? Does this communicate value to them? Am I being too aggressive in this? All these different things you take into account. And even if it's just like, I want to explain this in a way that makes sense to them, in order to do that, I should try to put myself in their headspace so I can say, you know what, these 3 concepts, they probably don't understand. I'm going to simplify these 3, but I'm also going to hit on these 10 points because I think that will encompass the whole concept I'm trying to say to them. That is the skill of taking on perspective of other people. So we all have our own perception. The goal is to take on perspective of other people, and that makes you a better communicator. Last point here is, this is what he ended the whole video interview with. We do this with all of our guests. We just say, hey, as we end the interview here, what is your key piece of advice, one sentence that you would leave us with today? And he just said, work hard and trust God. And I think that embodied his story so perfectly. There were so many times throughout the story today as we were going through and he was sharing that I just saw this constant theme of he is a hard worker, and he is a great example of what it should look like to wake up every day, work hard, all these things, dedicate yourself to the work directly in front of you. But there was also a beautiful element of where he's working as hard as he can, but there is a lot of other things going on. And as he approaches all these walls that are in front of him, this one moves out of the way, this one falls down, this one splits in half, and you just see the Lord working through his story of opening all these doors, providing the right person, providing the right opportunity to move him forward in these things. And it was because he was willing to trust the Lord in that and say, you know what? I would like to get this result. I'm working as hard as I can for this result, and I'm not going to give up. But ultimately, it's in the Lord's hands. So we will end with that. We will end with work hard and trust God. That is the resounding theme from today's interview.